Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Hebrews. Today we begin looking at Hebrews chapter 13. Now chapter 13 is the final chapter of the book, and in this chapter the author of Hebrews begins his concluding remarks. He's wrapping everything up. This chapter is sort of like a benediction, and he has a number of things, really a lot of things, he wants to remind the Hebrews of. So we'll see a number of things he's going to mention as we go through this chapter. Let's begin with the first 3 verses. Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and remember those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering. In these first 3 verses, he reminds these Christian believers of their obligation to love one another. Keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters. In other words, we are the family of God. In Christ, we are brothers and sisters to one another. We love each other. You do that, he says. Now just keep on. Never grow slack. Never grow reluctant to show your love for each other. And he mentions a couple of ways you can show that love. One, practice hospitality. He especially mentions practicing hospitality to strangers. I think what he's referring to is when Christians, traveling Christians, maybe traveling preachers or traveling missionaries, come through your area. Be hospitable. Give them a place to stay. Open your homes to them. As they're doing the work of the gospel, spreading the gospel, traveling, when they come into your community, open your homes to them. That's the way you show love for one another. Not just the members of your local congregation, but believers everywhere. So when someone who's a Christian, but a stranger to you, comes to your community, open your homes. Give them a place to stay and something to eat. Provide for them. Practice hospitality. Notice he says something very interesting here. For by so doing, some have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. It's an interesting comment, but the author of Hebrews makes it clear that oftentimes the supernatural messengers of God may be among us and we not know it. They may look to us as though they're human, but they may be supernatural visitors from the heavenly throne, the angels of God. Some have even entertained them without knowing it. So the author of Hebrews says, be aware of the supernatural world and your interactions with it, sometimes unknowingly. So always practice hospitality, show love. Also show love to those who are going through hard times, some who are in prison. Now the implication there is that there is some persecution of believers, and some are in prison right now, the author of Hebrews says, because of their testimony for Jesus. So you help them as best you can. You know, in ancient times when you were in prison, you depended on family and friends to supply your needs, food. They didn't necessarily feed you in prison. So the author of Hebrews says, for fellow believers who are in prison, you're one with them. Provide for their needs. Help them in every way you can. Also help those who are being mistreated. There may be some who are being persecuted, haven't yet been in prison, but they are undergoing hostility for their faith. You stand with them. You be one with them. You see, Christian love is a very practical thing. Christian love and Christian caring shows itself in very concrete ways. You care for each other. You don't just say, I love you, but you show your love by what you do for one another. So, strangers come among you, open your homes. Practice hospitality, practical love. If someone's in prison, take care of their needs, practical love. If someone's undergoing mistreatment, you stand with them, practical love. Our love for each other must show itself in practical ways. So, as the author of Hebrews wraps up his letter, he says this most important thing: love one another, and show your love for each other by how you care for each other and what you do for each other. Hope you join us tomorrow as we continue looking at chapter 13 in our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Hebrews.